This is the Grow Your Clinic podcast from Clinic Mastery. We help progressive health professionals to lead inspired teams, transform client experiences, and build clinics for good. Now, it's time to grow your clinic.
Welcome back to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. My name is Jack O'Brien, your host. Thank you for entrusting us to join you for the next 20 to 30 minutes or so for another episode. As always, you can head over to clinicmastery.com/podcast for any of the notes, links, or profiles that we mentioned in this episode. And I'm going to guess that you probably will want to do that. So today we have another guest joining us. I'm really excited to welcome Shane Bennett to the podcast. Shane, how are you going?
Good, thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me on.
It is our pleasure. So for those who are unfamiliar, Shane is an osteopath and is an owner of Beyond Osteo Clinics with a number of locations around Melbourne. It continues to grow. Every time I seem to speak to him, there's another clinic location. So before we dive into Shane's journey, it's a bit of a spotlight on one of our Clinic Mastery team and clients. Shane is one of our Business Academy mentors as well. So we're going to explore all things Bennett and all things Beyond. Before we do that, I've got a few icebreaker questions. Are you ready to go, mate?
Yeah, far away.
All right. What are you reading or learning right now?
Reading The Economy Experience by Joseph Pine. It's a hefty book. I'm wondering whether I should have gone the Audible option. There's some great themes in it, but I might be a tad slow on the reading. I really am wondering whether I should have gone to a 1.5 speed Audible or something.
It's tricky with those big books, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe with a short attention span like I have.
And given your commute 2.5 hours each way, Audible would be a sensible option.
Absolutely.
Nice, mate. Okay, number 2, who inspires you?
A couple of people. There's the old cliche of parents. My father has faced a lot of challenges in his life, and what he's been able to achieve in the face of adversity has been incredible to see. And then on a bigger scale, I'd have to say Kat Cole, COO and president of North American Focus Brands. Her career trajectory is unbelievable. For those who don't know her, I'd say Google her, listen to her, read anything about her, and her stance and her own leadership style is something that I aspire to.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, and I looked into it, and I hadn't heard of her, but I really enjoyed immersing myself in her story and insights after you'd mentioned that a few months ago at a retreat. So that's awesome, mate. Thank you. Number 3, what did you want to be growing up?
Of all things, an architect. It was, for quite a while. I think at the moment I'm getting to have a bit of a dabble in it with a couple of clinics that we're doing a fit out on, and probably much to the architect's demise. I'm liking to get my fingers into that one, and I guess time will tell whether I should stick to my day job. I suspect I should, but hopefully we end up with clinics that have doors that enter into the right spaces and nice spaces to be in. But yeah, I do love it. But at some point in time, I couldn't even remember when, we're getting a few injuries treated. I played a fair bit of tennis as a junior and came across physios and osteos and the likes, and I was pretty impressed by the fact they didn't have to sit down at a desk all day and didn't have to sit in front of a computer. And initially I thought, this is amazing. They just work with elite or sub-elite athletes.
Of course, don't they all?
Absolutely. Isn't it 99% of them? Yeah. Yeah, so that was what got me into it, and I've never looked back. I do say I look back, and I think I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have found a profession that I wanted to get into. I look back and think, I think I chose that at about the age of 17, and I'm sure there's many decisions I made at 17 that I might regret, but going down the allied health pathway, and in particular osteo, I'm so glad, and I think there's got to be a bit of luck involved there.
Yep, no doubt. And we'll press on that journey a little more shortly. Final question, what's a motto that you live by?
Worship the journey. I think early on, and I still have a tendency to try and just get to a goal and never kind of stop and enjoy the process. And as business owners, I think, there's, I guess, all careers, but I think as a business owner, you're always going to be looking for the next thing. and, to grow and to evolve. And if you keep just focusing on the goal and you don't worship the journey, then I feel like you're going to have a fairly unhappy career.
Yeah, that definitely resonates. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, mate. So you mentioned a young tacker thinking about architecture, end up playing a bit of tennis and find physio, osteo and the allied health space. Connect the dots for us. How did you end up a doctor of osteopathy and in private practice? Fill in the space for us.
I went from playing a sort of a reasonably high level of tennis as a junior, and there was a guy known around the traps. His name was Shane Hamill, and he was known as a bit of a gun for fixing injuries. And I'd been to see him a couple of times. He'd fixed injuries, and I thought, this guy really knows his stuff. So I actually tracked him down, and his profession, I think he called himself a soft tissue therapist. And when I went to see him and find out, I was like, mate, I've looked up, in the old VTAC guide, I've looked up, tried to find soft tissue therapist, and it doesn't exist. What is it exactly that you studied? And he said, look, I've studied a whole range of things. I think he'd done a remedial massage course or something like that. And he said, look, my partner's actually an osteo, and he's like, I would highly recommend you go and investigate what that is. I'd never heard what an osteo was. So went and had a look at it, looked at what the course covered, and went, that sounds pretty amazing. And went and saw a couple of osteos and thought, this is for me. So it was kind of a weird approach in a way, because at no point did I look into physio or chiro or anything else, but it wasn't because I was kind of, anti anything else. It was just I'd met this guy who was just a gun, and people rated him highly, and said he was a guru in tennis world, and he directed me that way. And yeah, very grateful to him.
That's unreal. And so step us through the journey of now being a practice owner. How does one go from graduating from osteo school to being a clinic owner?
I think I did that reasonably quickly and naively. I went, when I graduated, did my 5 years of osteo and jumped in and started working with one of my lecturers. And it was a small clinic. She'd gone on mat leave. So right from the start, I was sort of in a clinic, which I think can be still to this day a fairly common story. I was in a clinic, in a two-room clinic, but most of the time there was only one practitioner. And it got fairly lonely fairly quickly. But through some local networks referral networks, there was someone who was setting up a wellness space, and they were getting a whole heap of modalities in. So I spoke to the owner of the clinic at the time and said, look, I think we should try and take a room or two down in this wellness space. And she was probably at the point in her career or life where she wanted to or had some bigger focuses. She just had her first child, and she said, look, I don't think I can go down that pathway. So she's like, you're more than welcome to. So I took a room with that gig, just literally rented a room, ran my own clinic. By clinic, I mean it was a one-man show, being me, and it was 2.5 days a week, and continued to work for my boss at the time. She was fantastic. I do have to give a special mention to Brenda. And anyway, fast forward 12 months, and the clinic that I was set up was busy. I needed to spend more time, and Brenda had said, look, I'm kind of, in a way, I'm overrunning a clinic, and buy it off me. So long story short, purchased that practice, and she came to work for me. So we were only maybe 4 or 5 kilometres down the road. So brought on another osteo, took a couple more rooms, and all of a sudden I had a small business. Had no or little idea what I was doing. I loved being an osteo, and I liked being part of a group and working with other professions. And the lady who ran that, Annie Urondes, I believe she might still be the president of the Myotherapy Association. I think what she was doing at the time was quite innovative, and it was just a great environment to be in. And over the time, we grew out of that space. I'd say probably fast forward another 18 months, we grew out of that space, and that brings me towards the Beyond process and where our clinic is today. And I at the supermarket one night, bumped into Michelle Funder, who is the co-founder of Beyond and president of Osteo Australia, and literally bumped into her in the supermarket. I needed to either move out of where I was or sell the clinic and move on or start afresh. And she was running her clinic. She'd run it for 12 months. It was just around the corner from mine. And so bumped into each other, had a very brief conversation, and it was probably me saying, do you want to buy my clinic? And her saying, I have way too much on my plate as it is. This running a clinic business is hard work. And somehow we just decided maybe it made sense to merge. What's the saying? Go fast, go alone, go far, go together. Mm-hmm. And so again, we didn't know that saying at the time. It was a naive decision. And it was as simple as us just deciding to go our separate ways, write down what our dream clinic was and what we were trying to achieve. And then if those two things aligned, then it made sense to join forces. And if they didn't align, then let's go separate ways. And crazy, but we had a very similar, at that point in time, I'd say it's probably not our why now, but we had a very similar philosophy, and we just wanted to work with other professions, not just osteo. And we wanted an environment where people learnt off each other. And as we were basically merging our practices in Hawthorn, we had another osteo approach us who was selling a practice in Chapel Street, Prahran in Melbourne, and they said, do you want to buy our practice? And once again, another naive decision. We went, well, surely doing two is as easy as doing one.
Of course it is.
So, in for a penny, in for a pound. We jumped in, and we probably spent the next 3 years barely keeping our head above water.
Yeah, wow. Mm. If I can just rewind a little bit, you mentioned that when you started out, you had 2.5 days in one little room, and that grew pretty quickly over a short period of time. And since then, sure, Beyond may have started out as a bit of a amalgamation of 2 and then 3 practices, but it's grown now to a team of 40 plus in a few short years, really. So there must be a bit of an inherent knack for you around at least attracting or retaining, growing your clinic. What is it about that clinic growth what would you put it down to? What would you put that clinic growth down to?
I think there'd be a variety of reasons. I think, for one, we have always taken on outside advice. I think we have known right from the start, maybe it's due to an absolute lack of any business knowledge whatsoever, we knew that there was a lot out there that we didn't know. So we've always from the start, I can look back, I actually never really noticed this until more recently, and realised that we have forever worked with at least one consultant, whether that's paid or unpaid. We've had mentors. We've always been surrounded by people who know more than we do. And I think a credit to Michelle, the co-founder, but that position to make decisions and have a bit of confidence. I think there's also a good dose of naivety. I've brought that word up a few times, and I honestly believe that all successful startups start up with a decent dose of naivety.
Sure.
But it's that support network and that safety net, in a way, of knowing that you've got people that have your back and know more than you do. That would be our success, I think, is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, mate. So paint us a picture of Beyond now. How many locations, team, how many people helped, whatever you feel comfortable, paint us a picture.
Yep. So we now are we've just taken over a 4th location. It is well and truly a multidisciplinary practice now. It is osteo. We've just launched physio, which we're very excited about. Podiatry, exercise physiology, clinical Pilates, myotherapy, remedial massage. So it's in our mind, that true multidisciplinary space. It's 4 locations. It's a team of 40 plus, and it has grown quite dramatically in the last 12 months. And I would put that growth down to a really solid structure. I won't bore people too much with the details, but we have formed a board, we have a share price, so we have shareholders. We had an amazing consultant who is now the CEO of Lucy Folk, and she kind of really structured us up. And I think we must be coming up to 12 months now, but we actually stepped back into Clinic Mastery. So we did a session with Clinic Mastery in its early days and loved it. And it was a slightly different format back then, massive amounts of content. And we stepped out for a little bit to apply the content. And as we kind of structured back up, and I think we probably stepped back into Clinic Mastery on a front foot. So we came in from a position of strength. And again, I look back on it and think it would be very easy in those positions to either sit back on your laurels a little bit or even think, well, I don't need help because I'm not thinking right now. But as you know, we even talk about it in osteo, physio, any allied health world, it's we talk prehab, not rehab. And it's been, I think, again, another good pivot or step that we made to step in a position of strength.
And that's obviously reaped rewards to grow so significantly over the last 12 months. I'm interested, what does your average week look like now, both as a clinician, a clinic owner, and a business mentor through the Clinic Mastery Academy?
It's a varied week. It's a busy week, a good busy. I don't like to say the word busy on its own, good busy. I treat 2.5 days, but it must be, it's probably about 25 hours a week.
So if I can interrupt there, how come? Why? Do you have to, or do you want to?
Definitely don't have to. It's a passion. At the moment, I can't see myself not treating. I will probably drop it slightly. But for me, I still really love it and enjoy it. So I still want it to be a part of my working week. We do have a structure. We've set our clinic up. So the other co-founder also is the same. Actually, in fact, we have 4 shareholders now, the 2 co-founders, and we've had 2 other people come on board. And all 4 of us treat. We treat varying amounts, and it's down to preference. So mine's 2.5 days, and then
What about your role as the business owner or a co-owner shareholder? What's that role look like?
As I touched on before, our clinic, and there's definitely no right or wrong, but ours is from the back end is very structured. So we have job roles, job titles. Mine is as GM. So general manager. I probably do around about, it would vary depending on what's going on at the time. At the moment, we're moving 1 clinic, and actually we're moving 2 clinics, and we've just bought 1. So my week is hectic at the moment. So I would spend at the moment 15 to 20 hours, actually if I counted probably 20 plus hours on that. And then the Clinic Mastery mentoring that I'm doing, that I stepped into last year, and it's a big working week, but it's varied. And again, maybe a bit of a cliche, but I love every element of my working week. So it does not feel at the moment like it's as big as what it probably is.
Very interesting. What's been the 2 or 3 biggest shifts that you've implemented or Beyond has implemented over the last year or 2 that's moved the needle the most?
A much bigger focus on our team. We had underestimated the importance of spending time with team. I think we've changed our leadership style. We had thought that just leading by example and just getting in and pumping out a heap of patients and just doing what we thought was the right thing to do as a practitioner was the best approach, and not realizing that our team wanted to spend more time with us, that need more support, not due to any form of inadequacy, but I think everyone wants to know whether they're doing the right thing, and they also want to know whether they're doing the wrong thing. So being accessible to our team and if it's not us, then creating a team that is accessible to our team. Yeah, so I guess that's one thing, focusing more on our team, becoming very clear on our why. And, originally it was, we want to work in a multidisciplinary team. It probably wasn't a true why. We became very clear on that. And since then, I think we've been able to plug everything through that filter. And that, it's as simple as, when we look at it, what do we want to leave behind? What's our legacy, so to speak? What are we going to be proud of when we either leave this clinic or retire? To us, it came down to the fact that we really wanted to create opportunity and through career pathways for our team in a profession or group of professions where there's often not a lot of career opportunity. We originally just thought that was osteo, and as an osteo, you either worked for someone or you went and set up on your own, and they were your two options, and that was your career pathway. Which now that I've gone down that pathway, I realise it's not actually a pathway; it's just a completely different job. And right. Running a business is in an entirely different skill set to being an osteo or a physio or a podiatrist. So we wanted to be able to create opportunities and not end up in this scenario where it was a cottage-based industry where people maybe weren't learning off each other or were only learning off the one or two that were within their own clinic. And maybe even then they weren't even crossing paths with them. So if we could create a clinic where people could grow and learn, and if they really wanted to, could come in as an intern, a graduate, slowly into a senior practitioner. There's multiple career pathways into shareholding, clinic manager positions, clinic director positions, sit on a board, whatever they want to do. If we can create that space, obviously we'd love to keep everyone forever. That's not going to happen. But if we can provide opportunity for people, then that's what we'll look back on, and that's what we'll be proud of. And when we really got that down to something as simple as that, our clinic took off.
That's unreal. There's so many things that I'm hearing as you mention that sort of stuff. It's not the shiny stuff necessarily. It's not the new Facebook ad or the new marketing campaign that's been the biggest growth driver. It's been a focus on team. And it sounds like that's a healthy mix of an internal maybe values realignment for you as a leadership team to go, no, we're going to live this and breathe this, and some practical things, like I said, being accessible and developing pathways. There's some real tangibles as well as the intangibles around leadership. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We follow, again, we call it our simplified framework to success, and we have a vision. We say that our clinic can be broken down into these kind of 5 categories. The vision, what is Beyond's vision, and for us that's to create career pathways. We put a bit of a number around that, and we're really under the pump to get there, but it was 7 clinics by 2021. That's our vision, but it comes from the fact that we need that growth to be able to create the career pathways. Now, in order to get there, we need talent. So our categories of vision, talent, strategy, measure, and getting back to, we'll just jump back into talent for a moment. We realize that if we're going to try and get to where we're going, we need the right people. Not only, what's the saying, the right people on the bus. We also talk about the right people in the right seats on the bus. And so that made us sit back, and we come back to team again and we say, well, what's our recruitment strategy? Even a step before that, where are we finding these people? Why would these people ever want to work for us? Hopefully, how are they finding us? We want people, searching us out. We want to hit that point. So that's, talent is kind of that, in a way. It's that number one. You've got your why, but you need people, you need a team to get you there. And then what's our strategy? Our strategy is pretty simple. Our strategy is client experience. And again, when we start looking at that, that's from our end, that's probably one of the big things that drew us back into the clinic mastery fold. And that was, there's a million private consultants out there. There's a million other companies, but a big thing that stuck out to me with Clinic Mastery initially was that everything revolved around client experience and looking after your team. It was everything else will follow, the numbers will follow. If you can just create a great experience, both for your team and for the people that walk through the door of your clinic, then you're on a winner.
It gives us the warm fuzzies to hear a clinic owner like yourself, obviously a team member, but a clinic owner. We exist to help health professionals lead inspired teams, transform their client experiences, and grow their clinic. Like that's it in a nutshell. And it's exciting to me that the Business Academy creates and produces outcomes like Beyond. Yeah, that's unreal. And it's a real testament to your leadership team and the ability of you guys to implement. So that's super stuff. Just on the Academy, if you were to recommend the Business Academy, who would you recommend it to and why?
Well, we've entered it. I think we entered it when we barely had our head above water, and maybe we didn't even have our head above water, and it was highly beneficial. And then we jumped back in when we're on the front foot and found it highly, and we're still part of it and find it highly beneficial. So I think any clinic owner, big or small, I guess the one disclaimer I put on it is you've got to be in the mindset that you're going to implement. And that's with anything. Trust the process, worship the journey. And yeah, so I would say anyone. And I think of a few of the clinics that I work with now within Clinic Mastery, and the size varies massively. People are just focusing on different things and tapping into different areas of Clinic Mastery to get the results that they need. So I don't know if that's too vague an answer, but yeah, I'm kind of thinking anyone who's prepared to implement. That's my answer.
No, that's awesome, mate. And likewise, our clinic is still learning from CM, and I love that you're able to bring that humility, but then also, you've done amazing things and continue to do so, and the ability to then pass that on to other clinics, to bring your osteopathy perspective. We're really excited to have you on the team and the amazing work that you're doing. And thank you so much for sharing, about your personal journey and the Beyond journey. If people want to check out Beyond or want to get in touch with you personally, is it all right if we link all that up in the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Super. So listeners, will have all of the links for the socials, the websites of Beyond Osteo in the show notes, and we'll also have some of Shane's social profiles there. That'll be at clinicmastery.com/podcast. Shane Bennett, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No worries. Thanks, Jack. It's been fun.
And listeners, thank you for joining us. As always, we appreciate your honest reviews and ratings on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen. And you can grab all the links and notes from today's episode over at clinicmastery.com/podcast. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast. And I can't wait to bring you another episode again really soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. To find out more about past episodes or how we can help you, head to www.clinicmastery.com/podcast. And please remember to rate and review us on your podcast player of choice. See you on the next episode.